Alright, hello guys and welcome to my London Q&A. For those of you that are new, my name's Liv and I have just moved from Sydney to London a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a Q&A. People of you have been asking me questions, sending me DMs saying that you're thinking of moving or you are moving, and I found that there's a lot of answers, a lot of questions that don't have answers that you can necessarily look up on the internet, and you guys have sent me through on Instagram and on TikTok a list of questions that you want me to answer, so I'm going to try my best to get through them. So I got myself some Wagamama, which I'm super excited about. It's like a chain restaurant here in London and they have an insane vegan menu on it, so I thought I'd try a couple of their dishes and have a chat and answer some of your questions about moving to London. So before I start, I got the Donburi, I got the no duck Donburi, I hope I'm saying that right. And then I got vegan ribs as well, and mushroom bao bun. And I also got this Buddha beer, which I thought was so cute. Look at the bottle. So let's get into the video. I thought I would sort of answer this in more of my experience moving, just sort of running from beginning to end, and then answer a couple of questions that you guys have asked along the way. So my decision to move, why have I moved to London? So pretty much, actually I'm gonna try something that's good before I'm talking. Oh my God, that's so good. Watch me finish all this food. So around 3 years ago at this sort of time, I was finishing off my HSC at school. I went to school in Sydney, and so I was doing my HSC and I did art as one of my subjects. So when you do art, you have to produce a major work, and then it can potentially go to this thing called Art Express, where pretty much the HSC body choose a group of pieces that they feel go with the themes of whatever their collections are afterwards. Pretty much it's called Art Express. So my pieces were selected for that, which was crazy to me because it wasn't necessarily something that I was overly invested in. And then I got an email from a uni called the University of Arts in London, and this was a uni that I spoke to my careers advisor about it when we were sort of looking at what unis we wanted to apply for, and she pretty much told me that the caliber of work that is gets selected for these kind of things, it was just not going to happen. There was just no chance in hell. She pretty much told me that applying internationally for an arts-based thing, it's just the pool of people that get selected is just not happening. So kind of put that on the back burner, but then I actually got an email from them saying that through the Art Express, they saw my work and they would like to invite me to an open day so I could just have a see what courses and everything they have to offer. So this got me a little bit excited. I went to the open day, heard about this course, art direction, which I knew post-uni I really wanted to do. I want to get into art direction, creative direction, sort of after I finish uni and sort of later on in life. And this course was super niche. It seemed like an amazing opportunity, and I thought, why not go for the interview, see if I get it? And then I happened to be offered a position, and then I was in this weird spot where I had my sort of life lined up in Sydney, and if I wanted to do that, or this random opportunity that's kind of just I've stumbled across and see if I want to do it. So I ended up deciding I was going to go to UTS. I went to uni in Sydney, came over to London, visited the school just to have a look, just to see what the open day was, and pretty much never went back to uni. So in Sydney. So I've now spent the last 2 years working and getting my way over here. It was meant to come last year, COVID hit, so that didn't happen. But now here we are. Fast forward to August 2021, when this was all starting in 2018, around this time again. So I'm finally here. And yeah, so I'm pretty much over here to study, and I start in 2 weeks' time, which I'm super excited about. So one of you asked, how long did it take for you to make a decision about moving? I feel like if I hadn't had come to London, the decision would have been a lot harder. So after I came here and experienced it, I just fell in love with this place and I could just see myself living here. I looked at the uni. It was pretty hard to turn down, their resources, everything that they sort of had to offer was insane. It made the decision a lot easier. I always knew during school that I wanted to either study abroad or move abroad. Post high school, and this was just an opportunity that in my eyes was a no-brainer. So how long will I be here for? My course is 3 years with the potential to do 4 years, and I probably will stay between 4 and 5 years for now at least. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but that's kind of my plans for now. Let me try one of these mushroom bao buns. The moving process. So I've got a couple of questions COVID related about sort of my experience in general. So when I was leaving Sydney, we were in a lockdown. It made things a lot harder. It made things a lot slower as well. You couldn't get answers in person. It all had to be over the phone, which meant that I spent a lot of time on hold and getting information. Things were changing every day. So I may have gotten an email one day being like, oh yeah, you're totally fine to go, and then everything could have completely changed the next. So it made preparing for it quite difficult. So one of you asked what the most confusing part was, and it definitely was the COVID procedures around this. So I think moving normally, all you'd have to worry about is a flight ticket and your visa. But moving during COVID meant that I had to get an exemption to leave the country, which is a whole video in itself. It took me like 4 attempts to finally get approved, and that was super challenging. You pretty much have to convince them that you don't plan on coming back anytime soon. At the moment anyway, that's just the Australian government. So I had to prove that I was coming over for uni. Uni wasn't a good enough excuse. I had to be able to prove that I would be here for more than 3 months. And also because flying from Sydney to London, there's no direct flights. So you have to fly through another country, which means you have to take into consideration that country's restrictions and everything. So initially I booked with Qantas, who flies through Dubai, and I booked with them. They're Australian, they're reputable. I always fly with them, so I felt pretty confident that it would be fine. Pretty much realized that Dubai is actually a red list country, so that would mean that when I land in the UK, they consider me coming from Dubai, not Australia, and we're green list. So that would have meant that I had to pay like £2,000, £3,000 to quarantine here for 2 weeks. Whereas if I was coming straight from Australia, then I didn't have to quarantine at all. So these are sort of things that I found out along the way, and I spent 8 hours in total on hold with Qantas. Finally had to like pull my Karen voice out and get my refund, so that I ended up booking with Singapore, flew through Singapore, which was green list, and here we are. We didn't have to quarantine. Did I need to be vaccinated? No, you don't need to be vaccinated as of now to come into the country. You can easily get vaccinated here, being on a visa, I'm pretty sure, or just being a citizen. Anyone's entitled to being vaccinated, I think, at the moment. So I didn't need to be, but I did get Pfizer a couple of months before coming over, just because I wanted to be safe with all the 24 hours of transit and stuff before I got here, so just to get it ahead. How long did it take you to get an exemption, and was it hard? I think the reason it took me so long is because I was doing it wrong, but the website did not have enough information, I feel anyway. Like it just was so confusing to me, especially since there wasn't just anyone that you could ask these questions, because everyone had their own policies in place, and there wasn't just one place that you could go to get all the answers for. So I hope that this video in some way can help one of you if you're planning on doing this. But again, things are changing every day, so I have no idea. What was the hardest thing about moving? Look, the hardest thing at this current point in time was knowing that flying over here, I couldn't just go back. Like, I can't just get on a flight back as easily as I could normally. You have to stay for a minimum of 3 months, and there's virtually no flights going into Sydney. I think it's capped at 750 a week into New South Wales at the moment, and that means that the price of those 750 seats are ridiculous. That meant coming over, I had to accept that if I didn't like it or things went horribly wrong, then there was just no easy way of getting back anyway. Another really hard thing I found, which a lot of you guys were asking about, is how did I deal with leaving my friends and family? I always knew that I wanted to move. I'm a pretty independent person as it is. Like, I enjoy my own company a lot, but definitely leaving my friends was super hard. Selfishly saying this, like, I know this is going to sound really bad, but the fact that Sydney was in a lockdown and my friends weren't going out every single day, and I wasn't seeing them all out together, and I know it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks and it's going to be a bit rough, but it made it a little bit easier that I felt quite isolated here, and everyone in Sydney was, you know, able to talk to me every day, and I'm FaceTiming everyone every day. We're still keeping in contact, where I feel like if things were in a normal situation, I would have you know, seeing all my friends out together and felt a little bit, you know, shitty. Like, and it was my own decision, but I think, yeah, definitely leaving my friends and family, but leaving London was the hardest thing, my little dog London. Which, by the way, I named her London because I was meant to move countries last year, and I decided if I can't go, then I might as well get a dog. So I bought a dog for my mum and sister so that when I left, she could fill the void in the household, let's say that. And a lot of people are asking if London came with me, and unfortunately, no. I did look into it, and it was stupid expensive. You have to get dogs vaccinations, passports, tickets. They have to stay in quarantine for a couple of days when they land. It would have been a really hard process for her, for me to put her through as well. And she would have a much better life in Sydney with mum and my sister, and she goes to work every day with my mum. So rather than being here all day by herself when I'm at uni, it was the best decision. But it's definitely been the hardest one because I can FaceTime with my friends, but she doesn't have any idea like what's going on when she can hear me on FaceTime and she's like looking around, but she can't see me through the screen. We haven't quite got there yet. Tips for dealing with the pain and sadness of saying goodbye to friends and family. I think leading up to it, I was a lot less emotional than I thought I would be. I think being in a lockdown definitely contributed towards that I was meant to have like a farewell thing and people were going to come to the airport, which they couldn't. So I didn't see all of my closest friends and family in one place, and like I had to physically walk away from them. I think like walking away from my friends at the airport would have been like just like heartbreaking, but I didn't have to go through that, and it was actually a lot more isolated. The one thing that I would say is if you are planning on moving or anything, is just it's so easy to get caught up in it being a negative thing when you see all your family and friends crying, and it's like a really hard thing, but keeping in mind that it's also a really exciting thing and just keeping the perspective on it that it's an amazing opportunity, you're super excited, it's the next step in your life, and although it's sad now, like everyone's happy for you, you're gonna have the best time, and just sort of staying in the mindset of it being exciting rather than a sad leaving everyone thing, which was the main way that I think I've kept my shit together since getting here. How much money did I save myself to get over here? Without sort of saying an exact number, keeping in mind that the Australian dollar to the pound is literally 50 cents. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but $1 Australian dollar is 50 pence. So you pretty much half all your money moving from Australia to the UK, which is really, really rude. It's really rude actually, but the cost of living here, I would say it is higher than Sydney. I found a few things are generally cheaper here, but things like public transport are a lot more expensive, but then you wouldn't necessarily be running a car here, whereas in Sydney it's more common. And so the cost of running a car and public transport kind of even themselves out. So I would say the cost of living in Sydney and London is quite similar. You would just distribute your money in different ways, if that makes sense. So I would take your current lifestyle as an estimate, and if you prefer to eat out a little bit more, then that's something you need to take into consideration or whatever. But yeah, I don't want to suggest a certain amount. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have an exact answer for that. But personally, I had to pay for my uni upfront each year as an international student, and I'm paying for it all myself. So that was an expense that I had to take into consideration. So that was my primary focus, just being able to pay my uni fees. Flying. Was it difficult to get a flight, and was it overpriced? Getting a flight out of the country is the easy part. Getting back in is the hard part. For one way, I flew with Singapore. By the way, they have student pricing as well. Just pro tip, I didn't know that airlines did that, but it was a significant reduction. I paid $850 for a one-way flight from Sydney to London with Singapore Airlines. And you get 40 kilos of luggage, which is 10 kilos, more than 10 kilos, more than any other airline. So if you're a student. So Singapore Airlines is the way to go. And they fly through Singapore, which is a greenless country, which makes the landing process a lot more easy. So fly with Singapore Airlines, they're the best. How did you get all of your luggage over here? So I had a few problems. Initially, before I left, if you've watched my moving vlog, you would have seen this. I sent all my things with a company called Parcel Send. That cost me for a box about 30 kilos, 25 kilos. It cost me $750, which I thought was pretty good considering the amount, considering how much I saw the airline was charging per kilo of excess luggage. And I just assumed, do you know what, I'll pay it, whatever. Then I get to the airport, all my stuff's overweight. I'm standing in line, sobbing by myself. They've got the managers over there, the supervisors. They're like, we're going to try and help you out, but you can't bring all this stuff. It's too heavy for us to legally be able to transport because it was over the manual handling weight limit. So I had to take stuff out and put it in the back of my boyfriend's car. And so I pretty much had a few things at home still that I didn't get to send over and all that. So they organized to send that over for me. I was really lucky at the airport. I got a really lovely guy. Thanks, Ibby, for your help. And I didn't have to pay any of my excess luggage. And I kind of just managed to sweet talk my way into taking like an extra 15 kilos worth of luggage with me. But that's not always going to be the case, especially outside of COVID when the flights are full and they're not here to take your shit. In saying that, when I was crying at the counter, the lady next to me who was checking in said, you know, if you've got any excess luggage, send it with Send My Bag. This company, it's super cheap, super reliable, and it'll get there quickly. So Stab and my mum kindly organized to send over a couple of my belongings. And it cost $300 for the same size box, the same amount of kilos, and it got here in a couple of days. So I would highly recommend Send My Bag. Do your research because I definitely didn't do enough, and I really wish that I sent everything with Send My Bag. So it's super exciting to hear that a couple of you guys are actually doing the same thing soon. And you've been asking me about what the experience was at Sydney Airport and what you should bring and what to expect. So I had a 6 p.m. flight, which I assumed was the last flight of the day because there are about 50 people in the entire airport, staff included. Like it looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. That half the lights were off, everything was closed. There was virtually no one there. The only people checking in were the ones on my flight. I got through all of customs and everything, and we were like sitting in the lounge area, which is usually super busy. You can't find a seat, but everything was free and everything was closed. And instead of doing an announcement over the speaker, which I thought was so funny, they literally just came and like manually told all of us because all they had to do was just say like, oh, we're boarding the flight now, and everyone in the airport could hear that we were boarding, which was insane. There was about, I would say 20 people on my flight over there. There was definitely more staff than there were passengers. It was insane. That was between Sydney and Singapore, but between Singapore and London, there was a few more people on the flight. But at the airport, you need to have proof of your exemption to leave the country, a negative COVID test, which if you go to Histopath, I'm going to forget this, I'll put this on the screen somewhere, but if you go to this testing clinic, I know that they charge only $100 to get your international test done, which you need to get a PCR test, but it's a special one that you have to pay for. It's the exact same thing, but you just get a letter with it saying, pretty much instead of a text message, so you have to pay $100 to get your test, which is stupid considering you can go for free and get the same thing, but whatever. This is the cheapest one that I found. I know a couple of them were like $150, $200, so, and they have a lot of locations, so that one's definitely my recommendation, and I got it back within like 8 hours, which was great. So you pretty much just have to bring all the usual stuff and then all the COVID related things that you need as well. So once I landed in the UK, I didn't have to quarantine, and that's because Australia is on the UK's green list, so they've pretty much got a colour ranking system of the different countries all over the world, and if you're coming from a green list, you don't have to quarantine. If you're coming from an amber list, I think you have to quarantine maybe for 5 days or something, or maybe if you're double vaccinated, the rules are a little bit different. But from a red zone, it's mandatory 12 to 14 days, I think, in a hotel. So it was a really easy experience coming from Sydney, especially flying through Singapore. And the second you get off the plane, you can take that beautiful mask off because there's no mask mandates here at the moment. Like, you don't need to wear a mask anywhere. I think they advise you to on public transport, which obviously I do because the amount of people that get crammed into the tube is ridiculous, but you don't have to wear a mask. Like, no one really wears them here anymore, which is strange, but yeah. I'm having my no duck donburi, and it's got like fake duck through it. It's so good. my life now in London. I'm going to answer just the questions in order. Pretty much my living situation, which a lot of you have been asking about, which I know seems a little bit confusing, but pretty much I have an older half sister. She is my dad's daughter, so we share the same dad. She is 20 years older than me, so she's in her 40s now, and she has her life here in London. She grew up in Sydney, she's now living here, and her husband's from the UK. And she has a son who is 13, and a dog. So basically, she's very kindly allowed me to stay in the spare bedroom here until I sort of get my bearings a little bit. I know my best friend is planning on moving over here sometime next year. So I think I might hold out moving out and wait for her to come over so we can get our place together. But in the meantime, while COVID's a little bit, I am going to make the most of staying with family and avoid moving out just now. Anyway, that's my plan at the moment. Things could change, I guess. But yeah, I'm very grateful that I have a place to stay here. I am very fortunate to be in this position. I didn't actually think that I would be able to have moved over if it wasn't for this sort of bone that they've thrown me by giving me a place to stay, because as an international student, the fees for uni are extremely high. But it's going to be worth it. I know it's going to be worth it. Anyway, so that's where I'm living at the moment. We're living in southeast London. It's about half an hour into London Bridge, 20 minutes into London Bridge, so it's pretty easy. How did I manage to afford the move? I was working 60 plus hours a week leading up to this move. Literally day and night, I was working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. So I was a manager at a bar and I was working at Mecca, and I would pretty much do the day at Mecca and then go until 1 a.m. that night, and I would do 16, 17 hour days, and like it just became the new norm for me. So I've really thoroughly enjoyed this time off that I've given myself to just like settle into London and not be working like a freaking maniac. Pretty much I just knew that if I could work super hard before, then I'd be able to enjoy it a little bit more coming here. So I'm super glad I did that, even though it was at times quite intense working like 70-hour weeks at 19, but no, it was good. So I did that for 2 years, and here we are. What happened with you and your boyfriend? Are you guys still together? Unfortunately for him, he stuck with me. Yes, we are still together. I felt really guilty going into the relationship in like January sort of time. I was like, oh, by the way, in a couple months time, I'm moving countries. But we kind of just agreed to see what would happen. We didn't want to, make decisions based off what was going to happen in the future. And I'm really glad that we did that, because I honestly have found my life partner with him. Oh my God, I'm not saying that again. So Stavros, if you're listening. So yeah, we are still together. He and I were really good at communicating with each other, which I don't think this would work otherwise. Long distance fucking sucks. Like, it really sucks. And I think a lot of advice people give is like never leave the other one before having plans to see them again, or some bullshit like that. And it's like, how do you plan when he can't even leave the country and I can't even get it back into the country? So that's kind of how things are going at the moment. However, we're still talking every day. We're FaceTiming every day. He can't go out and see other girls because he's in lockdown. So, yes, we are still together and we are thriving in long distance. I don't think that I could have seen myself moving, being sort of like locked in a relationship if it wasn't in a relationship with him. So, what did I do when I got here? Just jet lag pretty much. But once I sort of got over that and I gave myself time to rest and settle in and unpack everything, I just decided to get on the train, get into London each day without really any plan, and just walk around and sort of get my bearings a bit. Pretty much I just got on the train, would get off at random stops, go for a walk around, and then sort of walk to the next area, and sort of just took everything in. And the first couple of days, I just felt so overwhelmed, like so beyond overwhelmed with everything, just looking around, like getting on public transport, just everything that you just take for granted because you just know your surroundings. Like, everything was new. Even though I came from an English-speaking country into an English-speaking country, everything's completely different. Like, there's just so many things that are different, and I'm slowly finding them out, sometimes the hard way. Like, I keep using the word pants when pants mean underwear here, and trousers is actually what I should be referring to. And in the past, when I've come here, I've been with other people, so you kind of like share the burden of sort of having to work out where you're going. But this is completely different. It's been quite intense. How is the vegan food in London? Better or worse than Sydney? Even a couple of years ago when I came, vegan food was a lot more accessible here than it was back home. Everywhere has options, whereas in Sydney, it's not. Like, it's becoming more common, but it's still not. It's quite mainstream here, and there's a lot of options here, and I've had some really good things so far. The difference, I would say, in food though, just in general, is, which I found quite weird in my Australian perspective, but like cafe culture and brunch culture here isn't really a thing, whereas in Sydney, you know, you'd meet your friends like 9, 10 a.m. for brunch, whereas here it's more of like a let's get dinner and drinks, or like a lunch kind of thing. And cafes, there's not really many cafes. It's more restaurant heavy in places, so I kind of do miss just being able to meet up with people and like go for a walk and like get a coffee and stuff, whereas here it's like it's pretty much just like going out and like restaurants. So that's one thing that is different. What are you doing for a job here? So like I said, I haven't rushed into applying for a job. I did have a trial shift at Sketch in London, which is a super famous restaurant here with the bathrooms, and they pretty much said that I can't wear jewelry or have nail polish on. And this is a part of my personality, so I pretty much turned that down, and I haven't, since like working in the bar, like a couple of shifts there, I have kind of decided that I'm gonna just wait and see what opportunities present themselves. I'm kind of just waiting for my uni schedule as well, because I can't really make any commitments to anywhere without knowing how many days a week I'll be at uni. So that's what I'm kind of holding off on, but fortunately I had saved and prepared myself to sort of give myself a couple of weeks/months without having to work. Are you still working with Glassons? I started following you from their stories. Oh, Glassons and other Australian brands in general, which I was fortunate enough to be working with before coming here. Unfortunately, they don't ship internationally. A lot of them, like Glassons, doesn't ship to the UK, so it doesn't really make sense for me to be promoting a brand that I can't easily get. But unfortunately, it's just like not feasible. But I'm hoping, I've already gotten a few like UK sort of brand deals and stuff, which is exciting. So I'm hoping to sort of tap into this sort of market a little bit more. But it's hard when 96% of my following is in Australia, and like UK brands, like what good is that to them if my following can't even buy them? So it's just kind of like a weird period, I guess. And I love Glassons. I love supporting Glassons. I brought all my stuff over with me as much as I could anyway. And maybe if I'm back in Sydney, at one point it will happen. But unfortunately, my monthly work with Glassons has ended. But yeah, culture shocks. A lot. Pretty much everyone's perspective on COVID here is super laid back. To most people, it's like, it's a distant thing. Meanwhile, there's about 20,000 cases a day. The government and the whole country's sort of way of getting over this is just by moving on from it and just learning to live with it. And I don't really want to get in, I'm not a place of politics, don't really want to get into it, but pretty much everyone here is a lot more laid back. If you don't want to be vaccinated here, you don't have to be vaccinated. No one's going to look at you differently if you don't want to be. Whereas in Sydney, there is such hate. There is such a strong hate towards people that are choosing not to be vaccinated because the government is saying we're not opening until we're vaccinated. So I think, yeah, that has been a major thing. In Sydney, you wake up, you check to see how many cases there are a day. Like, your whole day is based around waiting for the next announcement and the new restriction updates. Whereas here, it's like, I actually don't think I've seen the news on once. On the radio, they virtually don't mention it. I don't think I've heard anyone that I've met here yet initiate conversation about COVID. It's always been me initiating it, because I feel like in Australia we're so consumed by it at the moment because it's what the media is feeding us. Whereas here, everyone has just kind of like decided to, like, I don't give a shit about it anymore. Like, they've either had it or they're fully vaccinated and they're not worried about getting it. So another thing, the food and everyday items that I pronounce so different here. The other day I said to my nephew, I was like, oh, let's have zucchini pasta for dinner. And he looked at me and he just was like, what does that mean? And I was like, zucchini pasta, zucchini spaghetti. And he goes, courgette pasta. He like genuinely didn't know what a zucchini was. And like they call capsicums peppers here. They call eggplants aubergines. They like everything is different. Snow peas are mangetout. Which funny story, on when I first got here, I saw it at the supermarket and I called it mangotout because that's how it's spelled. And my sister just went, "Oh my god, you've got a lot to learn." Anyway, yeah, pretty much just the pronunciation of things. Like I said, trousers are pants. Singlets aren't a thing here. You think like singlet, that doesn't make sense to shop assistants. It's a vest. They call them vests here, which is just like, what do you call a vest? Like, what's a vest called here? I still don't know. Another thing, public transport. Still haven't wrapped my head around it. I don't know if I ever will. It's just an absolute headache. It's so expensive as well. Like, I'm talking like, it's capped at £13 a day, which is like 26 Australian dollars in public transport fees a day. And another thing, how late people go out here. Literally, I got a ticket to an event the other night, didn't start till 11 p.m. I was like going to meet people out. I'm like ready at like 7. They're like, okay, cool, we're gonna have drinks for a bit at our place if you wanna come. And I was like, oh no, like I'll just meet you guys out. Didn't realize that we weren't meeting until fucking 11 p.m. And I'm like sitting at home, my family had like gone out to dinner and come back. They're like, you're still here? And I was like, yeah, I didn't realize people go out till like late. So I'm getting like trains into London at like 10:30 p.m. And then the last train leaves at midnight. So it's like, there's no way to get home after that. It's just, doesn't make sense to me. I got a lot of questions about making friends, if I knew anyone here, and how I've kind of started to get around, kind of like make some friends. But pretty much before moving here, I knew no one. There was not a single person here that I thought I was moving over to, which excited me in a sense because I've never been in a position in my life where I've had to actively try to make friends, which I mean in the way of, you know, preschool, school, high school, sport clubs, extracurricular events, your family, your cousins, everything like that. You're always surrounded by people from a young age that you can easily make friends with. But then when you come to a new country and you don't know anyone, you then have to actively try to make friends, which has been a massive challenge for me. Fortunately, social media is quite a negative place at times, but it's also a really positive place, and this is the only reason that I've been able to make any sort of friends over here. I had a couple of like mutual friends that were living over here, and like the coolest thing ever is that people are either in the same boat as me, or they're coming over in the next couple of weeks, or they've just done the same thing as me, and they'll have seen my TikToks or my YouTube or whatever, and they'll have reached out to me being like, hey, I was either once new here or I will be new here. Do you want to get coffee? I don't know anyone else either. And I've met up with people from literally my TikToks, and they might have seen it and they're like, yeah, I moved here 2 days ago. I don't know anyone. Do you want to hang out? And it's been really lovely, sort of just like getting to know everyone and sort of make an effort to meet up with people that I've never met before. And, you know, it could be really awkward. It could be a really horrible thing. And I have gone, and I've never been a very like socially anxious person, but you know, like before going out with a group of people drinking, you have no idea how that night's going to go. You don't know what they're into. You don't know if they'll like you and if you'll be like uncomfortable. And so I've definitely like leaving at 11 p.m. at night as well. Like you've got a lot of time to think about, to overthink everything. So it gets to like, you know, 9 o'clock, 10 sometimes. And I'm just like, oh, should I just stay here? Like, you know, what if I have a bad night and I've wasted all this time? And I just would get into a habit of overthinking everything. And then I just say, you know what, fuck it. Like if it's a bad night, you can just go home. If it's an awkward lunch, you can go home. If it's, you know, if you really don't like the person or they're not who they say they are, you can go home. So I think I've just sort of got into this mindset where it's just like, fuck it, go do it. If you don't like them, you don't like them, and something really good can come from it. And I've actually made a really nice group of friends here. And I'm going out with people and I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to start uni and expand my social group. So I would, yeah, if you're planning on moving by yourself, you need to be prepared to just say like, fuck it, and just ask people to go out to coffee, you know. Message them. the worst can happen is they don't see the message. So I've been really fortunate that a few people have reached out to me, and that the people that I have reached out to have been super nice. And yeah, all right, we're out of beer, so I think I'm going to wrap this video up. I hope that I answered some of your questions and I helped you guys out. If you have any more questions about the move, please feel free to comment them below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed just sort of almost like personally like getting all this like reflection and just answering these questions. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys are enjoying the London content at the moment. More vlogs to come, more videos to come, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. So until next time.